Hi, good evening.
Welcome to Community Homeworks class on maintaining your sinks and drains. If during this class you have any questions, please type them in the comments section. That way our presenter can hopefully answer the questions for you. We would like to remind you that we are still virtual. We had hoped to be able to go live, but with COVID acting up, we have decided to remain virtual. Please remember you can go back and watch this class at any time. We are on our Facebook page and on YouTube. Our new communications person has devised a very easy menu on YouTube to help you find our previous classes. So please try it if you haven't already. If you would like to donate to help us provide these classes, that will also scroll across the bottom of your screen, or an email address where you can send a question if you watch this at a later date. This evening, I'd like to welcome our presenter.
Learn some more about sinks and drains.
Okay, perfect. All right, well, that's a lot of pressure. Know everything about sinks and sinks and drains. That's high marks, and hopefully I can meet them. Like Jean mentioned earlier, if there's any questions, please type them in. I would love to answer some questions, and if we need to, we even have an eraser board over here. I can draw some diagrams. So I'll kind of start off with, everyone has one of these in their homes. This is your standard bathroom sink. It's got your pop-up drain, which is when you want to wash your hands or hold water in the sink, you can pull the stopper up. This is what they call a cartridge style. Down inside here is a long cartridge. This happens to be a Moen faucet. Moen is a really good faucet. It's easy to do maintenance on because you could pull the handle off, swap the cartridge out, and install a new one in. So let's run down through a couple issues that happen with bathroom faucets. One of the main ones is on city water. We have, because it's running through the pipes, you get some sediment and you get a little bit of iron. If you're on Kalamazoo water, we have some iron in our water. And whenever you get decreased flow in a faucet, the first place to check is this piece right here. This is called an aerator. And basically what that does is adds air to the water so that it doesn't splash. If you were to take this off and turn this on full blast, the stream of water hitting the bottom of the sink would splash all over you. So this aerator, what's easy to do is this just spins off. Should just spin off. And you'll find there's a couple pieces in here. And what I like to do, make sure we can get this on the cameras, what I like to do if you're going to take anything apart with your faucets is you take the first piece off and then you set it right in the order that it's going to come off in. So there's this rubber gasket, and then there's it's like a little, this is basically the aerator that allows the water and the air to mix. And then here is the metal piece with a screen on it. So what you do is a lot of times right where this, let's see if this, you can see the little, grab my pen here. So you can see this little opening right here. What happens is calcium, iron, sand, debris from probably even your own pipe, if you have galvanized pipe, will collect right there. So you would just take this piece off, rinse it, and then we would reassemble everything. So because we took everything off and laid it in the order it was disassembled, you've got your metal piece with the screen on it and the threads. And then you take.
Should you rinse that metal piece also?
That's a good question. It kind of depends. It certainly wouldn't hurt. You can look at the screen when you have this piece off, and I don't know if you can see through there really well or not. Mm-hmm. But this one is definitely clean. So yeah, that would definitely be something you would want to look at.
And can you scrub either of those pieces like with a toothbrush, an old toothbrush? Or?
You could use a toothbrush. You want to use something gentle because you don't want to damage the screen. Another good thing is if the screen has a lot of lime buildup on it, hard water, is what you can do is get a little container, maybe a little bowl with like Lime Away or I think it's CLEAR, and you can just drop that in there maybe overnight. and let that solution work on the hard water to break it loose. And then that would be a great time to use a toothbrush, or sometimes it'll just completely dissolve away. So after this is clean, whether it needs a good scrub or an overnight soak, what you want to do is take your pieces back and put this one that just snaps right in. And then you've got your rubber gasket, which will fit right back inside. And then we're going to take it thread side towards the faucet and spin this rascal right back in. And when you put it back in, you just want to put it so that, or tighten it so that it's tight, and then maybe just a little quarter turn. It doesn't need to be much, because if you tighten it in there super tight, sometimes when you go to do it the next time, it won't work. It won't unthread because it'll be stuck. So another issue with bathroom faucets is the drain. People are like, in my sink, I shave, so I've got my, whiskers are in there, soap. If you're brushing your teeth, washing your hands, what'll happen is the drain will start to drain slowly. And this particular faucet has what they call a pop-up drain assembly. And what that looks like, I actually have a piece out of a box. Let's see if we got this right. There we go. So this part right here is what you are seeing in the top of the faucet. So all this other piping is underneath. And as you pull up on the handle, just like you do here, pull up on this one here, what's happening is the same kind of thing is going on right there. So you kind of see all the different contraptions we've got here. So what will happen is soap, whiskers, if anyone in the house has long hair, that will get stuck down in this drain. And what you want to do is pull the stopper out, and sometimes the stopper will have a bunch of gunge on it. It'll be look like silly putty or something like that. It's just, it kind of globs onto this. So you want to take a paper towel, clean this all off, make sure it's nice and clean. Then what you do is kind of take a peek down inside and make sure that that is nice and clean. That is where a lot of the blockage or the slow drains will take place. So kind of put things back in reverse. If you notice, the stopper has a little hook here that catches right in there. So you want to make sure that you line this back up correctly. And that's pretty easy to tell, because when you move it up and down, it'll raise and lower. And then you just tighten the nut back down. And of course, it's nice and easy when it's sitting on top of the sink like this. But Jean will show you where that is underneath. So here is the part we were just looking at, and the pop-up assembly is in the back. So this is basically what we just took a look at. That is probably the first place I would start if you're having drain issues. Slow drain, bubbles, just not draining very quickly. The second part is what we call the Ptrap, and that is the Ptrap right here. And I like to show, let me show you something real quick here. So when we call it a Ptrap, that's basically what that means. Plumbers like to try and keep things simple. So if you look at this, this looks like an alphabetical P. Of course, it might be backwards for you because it's looking at me. So this is looks like an alphabetical P. So we call plumbers, we call that a Ptrap. So what you want to do is on this sink here is you want to undo these nuts. They just unthread, and you'll probably want a small bucket, or what I like to do is take an old milk carton and cut the top off it, because this is full of water. And as you loosen this last nut, you're going to get a little sploosh of water because the water will be in here. This is actually what we call a Ptrap, or an air. The Ptrap, what that design is for is to keep the sewer gas, which is, you know, in your house, in the city sewer. That keeps the sewer gas from coming back up because this water will create a seal across here. So we're back to the slow drain part. So now you've got this off, and you're going to want to dump the rest of the water into your little bucket or pail. Now you've got this out, you want to look down inside. You want to make sure that it's nice and clear like this. Most of the time, this is also going to be full of, again, you know, whiskers, hair, soap, part of a toy falls down in here, a Lego. So what I usually do is take a piece of paper towel and kind of wad it up, and then slowly with maybe a screwdriver shove that piece of paper towel through and clean out this Ptrap. That should, you know, this is what you can do to help save a little money without having an official plumber come to put a drain machine down.
So when you're wiping it out, does it have to be perfectly clean or just getting the majority of the gunk out?
You want to get the majority of the gunk out. That's the basic idea, is we're trying to get gunk out. So once we get all our gunk out of here and the Ptrap is clean, then we want to put it back together. So again, we do everything in reverse. So we're going to tighten this rascal back down.
And should you tighten one side before you tighten the other side? Now that you took even more of it apart?
I think this is, you know, typically this would be glued, but I think it's not glued because
it's our demonstration sink.
Correct. It's a demonstration sink. So it doesn't really matter which part you take apart first, but putting it back together, see, now I'll probably have to do that again. So you take this off. So what you want to do is you want to put this side first so that, you know, this nut goes on first, because if you tighten this nut out here, you're not going to be able to get your drain assembly back in there. So I would start just like this, even though things are loose. Come back to here and start tightening this nut first, and then you tighten this down. And what I like to do is, while Gene's watching that, let me go grab a quick wrench here. Oops. Throwing things around. So what I like to do to make sure there isn't a leak is, once you get these nuts nice and snug, I like to put a wrench on them and give them a half a turn. So we give them a little half a turn. That one's pretty snug, and we give it another half a turn. That's pretty much guaranteed that you're not going to have any leaks. So now we go back up top, and if you turn your faucet on, obviously this isn't attached to anything, and the water's running, and it starts to drain slow again. This is probably the point when you're going to need some professional help. You're probably going to need a drain cleaning company to come in and run a machine, unless you have a sewer snake, run that down into the sewer line. But everything else I just showed you is certainly something you can handle. Just kind of take your time, and like I said, as you take things apart, make sure you lay them out in the order that they came apart. It's much easier to put them back together. So
one of our instructors always recommends too that you take a picture of what it looked like before you take it apart.
That is a great idea. I've done that before. Not so much on this faucet, because there's just like a couple parts, but some of the maybe what kind of, this is a good time to transition over to a kitchen sink. So if you were to take this faucet apart here, you would find, and I believe this is called a ball type. So let me, if you can take a look at that. That comes through all right. So what's great is, as you take things apart, or just before you take them apart, snap a picture, because as you can see, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There's 10 pieces to this faucet. And if you don't take pictures of them or lay them out in the order you disassembled them, it's going to be very difficult to put them back together. And I guarantee that if you have extra parts, You've just created a bigger problem than what you had already, and you're
Or
going
if
to
you
have
put them together in the wrong order, you
correct.
probably have just as big of a problem.
Correct. You're probably going to have spraying or water everywhere, or it simply just won't work. So it's a great idea, like Gene said, to do that. And the faucet we were working on is a cartridge type, and that's this one right here. As you can see, let me actually set that down so I'm not moving around on you. So, and you can see the cartridge is right here, and that just pops right out. So if your faucet is dripping or leaking, that cartridge is the part you're going to want to pull out and remove. And anytime you go to the hardware store or the box store, you're going to want to take that part with you. It makes it a lot easier on the men and women that work there to be able to help you find the right part.
Does it have a number or something on it that they can read, or should you at least know what brand name faucet you have?
Just like if you're ordering parts for, say, a lawnmower, you're going to have to know what brand, make, and model the lawnmower is. And with faucets, it helps to at least know what brand is it. Is it a Delta? Is it a Moen? Is it a Kohler? Is it a Price Vista? You know, what kind is it? And I don't know if we have any here, but sometimes on the back of the faucet, so your supply line hooks to the back of your faucet. Sometimes the identification of the faucet will be on a little piece of paper that'll say model and serial number, and that helps out a lot. And most faucets, I don't know if that comes in all right, but as you can see, this one here is a Delta. And just knowing that it's a Delta and taking a picture of the faucet and bringing the parts that you took out will increase the odds of you getting the right pieces that you need.
The first time.
The first time.
Some questions for you, Steve.
Fire away.
If the Ptrap still leaks after tightening with a wrench, what's the next step?
The next step would probably be to replace that Ptrap. Buy it, get a new Ptrap, which again so I would go get another, where are we? Okay, I would get another Ptrap. And there's two sizes of Ptraps. There's 1 1/4 inch and there's 1 1/2 inch. I'm not sure if that comes through on the camera.
Yeah, you can see that there's two sizes.
Okay, so you just want to, and again, I'm a big fan of take the parts with you. Put them in a garbage bag, put them in a bucket, put them in a Ziploc bag, take them to the store with you. It's so much easier, for whoever's working in the plumbing department to go, oh, okay, you need 1 1/4 inch Ptrap. But that would be my suggestion. If it leaks and you take it apart and then you clean it, put it back together, and it still drips, I would get rid of it and put a new one in. It's not a very pricey item, and it's certainly would probably take care of it, because they do crack, they will split. There is what they're called a ferrule, and you can see how it's beveled. And if you get that ferrule installed the wrong direction, or if it's cracked or has a burr in it, that will also make a leak. But to stop from running back and forth to the store, the hardware store, the box store, I would just get a whole new one.
Next question is from Lynn. How do you keep faucets from damaging calcification due to Kalamazoo's very hard water? I'm going to replace my second faucet in 8 years.
A couple. A pricier fix would be to get a water softener. Probably a not so pricey thing would be to the maintenance that I was talking about. Back here to your aerator and to the chrome piece that's in the sink is clean that with that lime away. Maybe put a little bit of lime away in the sink, pull the stopper up so it sits there, pull off the aerator and clean it. Everyone that lives in Kalamazoo County knows that we do have hard water. Even though you're on city water, the water comes from giant wells, comes from the ground. And as that water goes through, as rainwater settles, it's going through all the bedrock and the iron and the lime, and it collects it. So as we pump it back out of the ground, it's coming with iron. So probably the cheapest way would be to do maintenance on your faucet often, keep it clean. A little pricier option would be a water softener.
Earlier, April said, I have lemons on my kitchen faucet. I'm guessing that's something to try to get the lime away from her kitchen faucet as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, that would, yeah. That's a good thing. I honestly don't know if that works.
April's going to be our guinea pig.
Okay, well, yeah, April will have to call us back or text us back and let us know if that worked or not.
So lime away or CLR does not hurt the finish of your faucet?
No.
Okay.
No. The best thing to do is if you have a new faucet is do a quick read through the owner's manual. There's things like Barkeeper's Friend, which is kind of like Comet, is a great thing to use. Even vinegar, like the vinegar used for cooking. I think it's like 3% vinegar is another good one. Because we do have hard water, it's a maintenance thing, or a water softener. And even the water softeners help tremendously, but they don't eliminate everything. There's no way you can take everything out of the water and only leave water. It's just, that doesn't work that way.
Do you recommend the big tank type water softeners that look like a water heater? Or like I have a Water Boss, I think it's called, that's smaller and it's meant for like a 1 or 2 person household?
My opinion on that, and it's only my opinion, anything is better than nothing. So I know there's water softener companies here in town. I actually work with most of them. Have expensive top-notch units, and you can also buy water softeners at the box stores. There is a pretty good price difference, which usually means there's a little bit of difference between quality. But if you have to walk everywhere, you'd be thrilled to death to have a bike, regardless of what condition it is. So
Right.
anything is better than nothing is usually how I approach it. Everything's based off of budget. I know I don't have a money tree in my backyard, and I'm assuming no one else does either. If you do, call me.
Yeah. And you can, from the water softener companies, you can often rent as opposed to
Correct.
buying, and then you can try it
Mhm.
and see if it makes a difference. It makes a huge difference in my dishwasher.
Water softeners make a big difference. They're pulling a lot of the minerals out of the water, and so when you get it, it's softened, and you can definitely tell the difference. Whenever I forget to add salt, and mine's not working because I forgot to add salt, I know it immediately. I can feel it on my skin. So there is a difference.
Yeah, feel it on my skin. The dishes don't get clean or as clean.
And I can really tell too when I'm shampooing my hair. On my hair, it makes a big difference too. So let's jump back over to our kitchen sink. And the drain here is just a little bit different.
Do we want to look at the back of it?
I'll just kind of tip it up like
Okay.
this and kind of hold it. So what we have here is called a continuous waste. And that is because it continues from this side, shoots over here, and continues on down. Right here, flip this up. Right here at the end of the continuous waste would be where our famous Ptrap goes. Now, there are some times where you will see, and again, like I said, plumbers like to keep things simple, so we have an S. If I'm holding that right, there we go.
Now it's an S.
Now it's an S. So again, plumber technology here, an S trap. So some of these will have an S trap on them. And again, if you have a slow drain, what I recommend is to undo these 2 nuts and drop this continuous waste assembly down. And usually you will find that here in the bottom, this is called a basket strainer. This is your drain. This is your drain. This is called, don't trip on that. So this is your basket strainer. And that's how you would put that in there to keep the water in if you're going to wash dishes or rinse dishes. So your basket strainer, a lot of times right down in the very bottom, that's where you're going to catch food, you're going to catch
Gunk.
you're going to catch gunk. Yeah, Gene likes the gunk, so you're going to catch gunk in there. So in order to clean that, the best way to do that is to undo these two nuts, drop the continuous waste, and then with like maybe a screwdriver or something thin, that's when you kind of poke down through there and clean it. And then you can put that back together, and if it's still draining slow, then we're going back to our S-trap or our P-trap again. And again, this has a nut that's on there that will tighten down. So you would loosen the nut. And again, you're going to want a small bucket, or like I usually cut the top off of a 1 gallon jug of milk, put that underneath there, because this is going to be full of water right here. And as you take that apart, you're going to get a little sploosh of water, and then just like what we talked about on the P-trap, you want to shove a piece of paper towel or an old rag or something through here to get that cleaned.
So is there an advantage to having an S over a P if this is blocking the sewer gas from coming back? What's this part doing?
Well, this is actually not legal by code anymore. That doesn't mean that it doesn't, that you won't find it in houses. The reason they did that because what will happen is every now and then, as you're running water through there, the water will get sucked right through here and then down the drain. So this is open and you'll get sewer gas back up into your house. Two things that are bad with sewer gas. One, it smells really bad because it's sewer gas. And number two is it's explosive. So if you get a lot of it in a house, there can be health issues and possibly fire issues. So you definitely want to keep that clean. If it's not clean, clean it out, and then you put it back together again. And this is where I usually say if it's still draining slow, unfortunately that's the time it's time to call somebody with a drain cleaning machine, because they're going to run their machine down through that drain pipe all the way down to where it joins the bigger sewer line, and that'll clear it out, and that's usually where all the problems are at. So we'll cover real quick. Here's something that's I think a lot of people are starting to do is they're buying new faucets, and changing out a faucet is pretty simple. You've got to make sure that you're replacing it with something similar that's already there. And doing that is this nut here, and these two nuts are the only thing that holds that faucet on. So you would shut the water off. There are valves underneath your sink. If you look where these hoses go, they usually go to valves that are poking through the floor or poking out of the wall. You can unthread those from those valves, undo these two nuts, and the faucet pops right off. And then you can change it out yourself, put another one in there. The trick is you notice here that there's 1, 2, 3 holes in the sink. So you're going to want to make sure that either the tall faucets that have the pull-out sprayers that are very popular right now, that it comes with a base. See how this has a base here? So just picture that tall faucet comes off the top of the base, and you can still put I would say modern-looking faucet in an older kitchen faucet sink just by making sure that it has the base. So pulling off the faucets, of course it looks a little easier now because this is standing up. Usually this is down, but faucets are usually held in by 1 or 2 nuts, and then these 2 flexible lines that go down to the valves. That's it. That's all that holds the faucet in. So if you're even remotely handy, this is certainly something that a homeowner could tackle.
If you're going to replace your faucet, should you replace those water lines also?
Yes, I do not reuse old faucets, and the best ones, see how this is a braided stainless steel? And what's really nice about this is that there's a rubber hose inside it, and then the braided stainless steel goes around the outside. This has a very high rupture rate, and I usually put these in at customers' homes, and I sleep very well because I know it's a good quality braided hose. So yeah, I would definitely change those. See, they've got a plastic one here. You know, if you've got one, I certainly wouldn't lose any sleep over it. But if you are changing them out, the braided stainless is the way to go. And they do make them in different sizes. So again, if you're doing the checking out your faucet, some of the faucets come with these already on it. But if you have to buy them, I'm a big fan of put everything in a bucket and take it right to the hardware store. That way, everything you need, they can look right inside the bucket and send you home with what you need. So you only have to make one trip. Nobody likes to make multiple trips. Okay.
Got it.
Is the maintenance on a kitchen drain different if you have a dishwasher or a garbage disposal?
It is because usually, I guess, yes. The short answer is yes. And the reason is because if you have a dishwasher, the dishwasher will drain, from the bottom of the dishwasher. And if you have a garbage disposal, it'll go right into the garbage disposal. If it doesn't, if you don't have a garbage disposal, there'll be what they call a dishwasher Y, which again, plumbers, we like to keep things simple. It's going to look like a Y, and the drain will go right into the side of it. And if you're having a slow drain, we'll go back to our drain. So if you have a dishwasher Y, we don't have one of those, but just picture that there is a piece of tube with a branch off it. We'll call that a Y. So the dishwasher drain will come and hook onto that. So the dishwasher drain is usually hooked to the kitchen drain. So if you're having issues with like water gurgling up in your sink when the dishwasher is running, that's because you have debris in your Ptrap or your Ptrap, which is not uncommon because think about all the food that's going off your plate right straight into the dishwasher. So that food is going to go somewhere, and if it gets lodged in one of the traps, that's just something that you'll have to take apart and clean. And again, if that doesn't take care of it, then you're into calling a drain clean company because the blockage or the partial blockage is further down the line. And if you have a garbage disposal, I talk to a lot of customers and like, oh, my garbage disposal should be brand new. I never use it. That's the worst thing you can ever do to a garbage disposal. We use ours all the time because it keeps the blades in there spinning. They're not really blades. They're more like pieces, two fingers, if you will, that centrifugal force makes them spin and they kind of smash or mush the food so it'll escape out of the garbage disposal. So if you have one, use it. And what I tell customers too is if you're using your garbage disposal, turn the water on first. Nothing's gone down the garbage disposal yet. Turn the water on, let it run, so you know you've got some good flow going. And once that happens, then if we're talking like potato peels, things that are supposed to go down the drain. You wouldn't believe the things I've found down the garbage disposal, but we'll save that for another day. So what will happen is the flow is going. So as those blades, if you will, or those fingers are smashing and mushing that into a paste that'll flow through, you've created flow. So the more you put in, the more it goes. And once you're all done, we'll pretend it's potato peels. So when all the potato peels are gone, then you wait and you let the water run. And the garbage disposal is still running. We're talking like 5-6 seconds. Then I tell customers, reach over and turn the garbage disposal off, but leave the water running. Take your towel, maybe wipe down the sink a little bit. Let it run for 5-10 seconds because all the food that you've just pulverized is still in this continuous waste piece, or it's in here. And if you don't get rid of it, it's just going to sit in there. It's going to slowly solidify, and then you're going to have slow drains.
And sometimes fruit flies or
Fruit
smells.
flies, you get all kinds of funky things going on in there. And now they do make, back in the old days, if you will, they would say, oh, put lemons and limes down there. I've never found that to be the case if you use your garbage disposal often and run the water before and after you start putting product down in there. It kind of washes away all that gunge, as we've been calling it tonight. It just washes that all away, so it's gone. So you shouldn't have the fruit flies and you won't have the weird smells. Any other questions?
April says that the lemons work on her sink, so.
Okay, thank you, April. I will file that away in the memory banks. If I have a lemon and I have a dingy faucet, I'll put that on there. Perfect. Any other questions? Okay.
Not right now.
All right, perfect. So we'll kind of move over here. We've all seen this kind of a sink. This is what you would find if you went to, I don't know, say like a McDonald's or some kind of a restaurant. This is your porcelain sink. We'll kind of cover everything. So you look at this porcelain sink and you're like, oh my gosh, how in the world is that hanging on the wall? Well, as you can see, there's a nice cutout here, and there's a steel bracket or a hanger that slides up in here. You can see this kind of has a hook in here. So they anchor the steel bracket to the wall. They pick this up and boop, drop it right down on that hanger, and that's how that sits on there. And then if you need to, sometimes there's holes. This particular one doesn't have one, but sometimes there's a hole right here that you can access to run the screws through. So this is also, I think this is also a ball type faucet. So it would have, like we showed you all those pictures before. So this one's very similar, has an aerator. We've kind of gone over how that gets clean. If it's, it's kind of spraying crazy. And what's kind of neat about this one is, as you can see, there's no pop-up. This is what we call a grid strainer. And it's nice in a commercial setting where you have lots of people coming and going. It's a lot easier, it's neater, it's cleaner to have just the grid strainer, no pop-up assembly, which means there's very little maintenance that needs to take place on that linkage in the bits and the pieces. So we'll kind of switch gears here a little bit. I see we've got some plumber's putty here. This is good stuff. I don't use it, but I did when I first started. Now, so plumber's putty. We've got the pop-up drain right here. I'm sorry, the grid strainer right here. So if you're going to replace your grid strainer or your pop-up assembly, what we used to do back in the day, I'm sure there's still some old school plumbers out there that do it. When you're going to replace your drain, so we're talking about if this goes bad on your faucet, sometimes this little piece right here will just simply rust away. So now your pop-up is stuck in the down position, or it snaps off and it just disappears, and you want to replace this. So they used to use plumber's putty, and I'll kind of show you just because we have a little bit of time and it's fun. So you kind of just like Play-Doh, probably not many people play with Play-Doh anymore, but you would just kind of make a little worm out of it, we used to call it. And then you would put it around your flange of the pop-up, kind of mush it down. And then this would thread onto here, and this would be where, picture your sink is in this area. So as you tighten this nut here down, it smushes this plumber's putty. It kind of smashes it between this and the porcelain, creating a seal. Well, I'm not a big fan of plumber's putty anymore because I like silicone, 100% silicone, and it has to be 100% silicone.
The kind that comes in like a caulk tube?
Yep, the one you would need a caulk gun for, and you just put a generous dollop. You almost can't put too much. I mean, I suppose you could, but I would put just like I showed you the little worm or the ribbon. I would put that amount all the way around, and that's when you would drop that right where your grid strainer is, and plop that into that sink. And then you would tighten this nut down, and this would compress the rubber against your caulk, and that would create the seal. And once you smash that down in there, you're going to have, just with the plumber's putty, you had extra plumber's putty, and so you would take a a little tiny screwdriver and just kind of go around and take off the excess. With the 100% caulk, you would just kind of use your finger and clean it up, and then a paper towel, and just kind of swish around and get that clean. That's a permanent seal.
The silicone usually comes in clear or in white. Do you recommend clear?
Clear.
Okay.
Yep. Clear, I guess it's just because you won't be able to see it. Most of the time, sinks are, I guess I can't say that anymore. Now they're coming in all kinds of different shades, but usually, you've got your kitchen sink over here, which is stainless, so clear would be perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then over here, this is white porcelain. And you could use white if you wanted, but with clear,
You can use it in every sink in
that's
your house.
exactly right. Clear, you can use it anywhere you want. So let me put this back together again here so we don't lose the parts. I don't want Gene yelling at me. Okay, so do we have any other questions from our audience?
Not right now.
All right. So let's talk a little bit. So everyone wants to know the drain cleaning. What's going on with the drain cleaning? There's multiple companies here in town. I'm not going to mention any names, but there's a lot of companies here in town, and they're able to do pretty good drain cleaning. So let's kind of, just for fun, we'll go over here to the eraser board. We'll kind of jump onto something else. So we'll pretend here is, and you can tell I should have been an artist, right? So here's your faucet. Here's your continuous waste. Comes down, and we'll pretend that this is our wall and this is our floor. And so on here, we've got we're going to go legal, we're going to go with Ptrap. Comes into our plumbing line. And then the plumbing line is going to come down, and there should be a vent that goes up through the roof. So when you've checked your grid strainer, or checked your basket strainer, you've checked your continuous waste, and you've checked your Ptrap, and all that, everything is clear, and you still have a slow drain, what's happened is all that food particles, the soap, a little bit of grease from cooking, all comes down and it comes into this drain line, and then it'll shoot over. And then usually what happens is it'll drop down and tie into our main. This is usually 2-inch. And the main is generally 3-inch or 4-inch. So usually your problem is on the horizontal. It's right through here. So when the drain company comes out, they're going to take your Ptrap apart, and they're going to run their machine right in here. And the machine's going to go in, come down, make it around the corner, and it's going to clean all this out all the way back down to your main. Once it gets in the main, you've got toilets, you've got showers, you've got other sinks. So there's a fair amount of water that's flowing down through here. So the main goal is to get them to come down through here and drop into this main. That's usually, it requires equipment that most homeowners don't have. And it's just, that's kind of the way we go with kind of where we draw the line of what the homeowner can do or it feels comfortable taking on is your drain.
So this main line, though, doesn't it go into a great big line that goes somewhere too?
Mm-hmm. So,
because mine has a cleanout trap in that.
yeah. So we'll pretend this is your house. Make sure finally. All right. So what this will do is somewhere out here, there's going to be a big 4-inch PVC or a 4-inch cast iron line that's going to come in from the city. It's going to come in from the street. There should be a clean out right here, a full-size 4-inch clean out. It's going to come off and go up. And all the plumbing from the house is going to come over, come down, and go out. This is where if you have slow drains in, say, a bathroom or the shower or somewhere further down the line and it's bubbling and gurgling kind of everywhere in the house, things aren't draining right, this is where the drain guy is going to come and clean out. It can be roots in here. If you got a big old oak tree out front, if the house is, old enough, sometimes I'll come over here and draw another picture. Sometimes as it leaves your house, let's say this is your house, and it's leaving like this. It comes out. Sometimes this little rascal will do one of these things. This is called a belly. Slow drains, your whole house has a slow drain. There's either a belly or you've got a big old tree up here, an oak tree, and the roots are coming down, and these pipes are put together. There'll be like a bell, and then the next pipe will fit right in here. And this tree root will come right down, hop right inside, and get down right into the big main of it. Usually what they do with that, or what I recommend customers do if they've got this, is it's a yearly or an every other year drain clean. You just have them come out every other year, run their machine down through here. It clears the roots out. Unfortunately, until that big tree is gone, and even after the tree is gone, the roots sometimes still grow because they'll have little saplings or little shoots that'll come out. If you have a belly, sometimes if they're really bad, sometimes you may have to dig down and replace that section. But most of the time, if the house has been around long enough, the belly, the problem, if it was a problem like that, it's been taken care of, or the customer knows about it, and on a every other year basis has to come out and clean it.
So does the belly kind of work like a Ptrap? Is it?
It does. It does, because
See, I'm learning.
It is. So this is your pipe. See how good my drawing is again. And this is, we'll call this is the level plane. If you were to draw a straight line across it, so the water will come through, and you'll start getting little particles will hit this because there's water in here, and the flowing water will hit it and slow down, and you'll start to get a little build up until finally it's enough so that it's not draining. And they'll either bring an auger through here and clean that up. Sometimes they'll run a jetter, and the jetter, as it's traveling through, sprays backwards for propulsion, so it pulls itself in, as it also sprays forward. So it'll come through and it'll just blast this out so that it's just back to water again. This is something that usually the homeowner knows, because like every 3 or 4 years, nothing drains. So the drain cleaning company has to come out and take care of it. But it's a relatively inexpensive compared to digging up your yard and running brand new PVC sewer main from the house out to the street. I think that's pretty much it with the drain cleaning. I mean, those guys are pretty good at what they do. And for the kitchen sink, this would be same with a bathroom sink. It's usually in that short piece before it jumps onto a big main. If it's not in the sink, in the Ptrap, or in the pop-up drain or the grid strainer, if it's not there, it's usually in this little piece of pipe right here. And I do get customers ask me, well, what about Drano? I don't have very good luck with Drano. I think Drano or a drain cleaning solution is better used as a maintenance thing. It's something that you would do a couple times a year. I know there's I don't remember what I think it's warm water, baking soda,
And vinegar.
and vinegar but that's good for maintenance. Once the drain's plugged, you're done. You've got to do what we've talked here, take things apart, or you're going to need a drain cleaning company. But if you know you have issues, these issues here, the Drano and the baking soda and that kind of stuff is not going to work. But if you do have a kitchen sink and it's been giving you trouble and you get it drain clean and it's clean, that would be the time to use something as a maintenance in it. I'm sure it says on the back of the drain cleaning bottles what you would do for a maintenance thing. And basically what that does is it dissolves the grease, it dissolves the hair, it kind of liquefies it, turns it into jelly, if you will, so it'll flow through with the water lines. Just one other thing I thought of too, most sinks, we'll go back to our sinks. We were talking about changing out the supply lines. There's going to be a valve, a shut-off valve, right at the floor. And that's going to be true, it should be true with every fixture in the house, your toilet, any sink, your washing machine, your laundry sink. Showers, probably not so much because all that plumbing is buried back in the wall. But anytime you're going to work on plumbing, it's like electrical, you shut the power off to the outlet. Plumbing's the same thing. If you're going to work on the toilet or if you're going to work on the sink, you want to shut this off. You want to shut these off because they will, you will get wet. Shutting things off is kind of where you would start if you're going to, like we talked about earlier, changing out a kitchen faucet, changing out the supply lines, maybe putting in a new sink. There should be shut-offs here. And nowadays they've got the famous shark bites, which work on PEX and copper. Basically, it's a fitting that you just kind of shove onto the pipe, and for lack of a better term, it just kind of bites the pipe and stays on. So there are multiple options for shutting off faucets.
If you don't have shut-off valves and you're going to replace something, should you add them?
Yes.
That's something a
Yes.
homeowner can do, or something we would need to call a plumber?
It kind of goes back to what the plumbing pipe is. If anyone plans and does research, anybody can do any plumbing. It's like everything else. It took me a while to learn it, but once you get it, you got it. And now with YouTube, they didn't have YouTube when I started, and there's great stuff on YouTube. But to answer your question, so if you don't have these two valves, or these valves won't work, somewhere down in your basement, if you are on city water, there's going to be a city meter that comes in, and then that water line goes out to the rest of your house. There should be a valve there and a valve on the house side. And the meter, if you were to go outside, there should be a little plastic black box on your house, and there'll be a little wire that'll come up, and that's how they read and can tell how much water you've used. So if you don't have these or they don't work, you come down here and you would shut off these two valves on either side of the meter. Sometimes there isn't one in front of the meter, but there should always be one after the meter. So you would shut these off, and before you just start chopping away at things, verify that the water's off. Turn on another sink. If you have a laundry sink down here in the basement, that's on legs, and you've got a little faucet here, turn this rascal on, because this is the lowest point in the house, and all the water is going to drain to there. But always verify that those faucets are off, or those valves are off. You can even simply turn this on. If it's still squirting out water, it will squirt a little bit because the house is pressurized, but it should only run for like 5-10 seconds and then come to a slow trickle. If you have it upstairs, all that water that's in those pipes are going to have to slowly drain back down. But please verify that those work, or that these two work, because if they don't, you're going to be in trouble. If you peel that off, now you're going to have to stand there with your finger over the pipe to try and keep it from spraying.
So as part of your regular maintenance of cleaning your Ptrap or your drain or whatever, should you make sure those shut-off valves turn? Because it's kind of like your garbage disposal. If you don't use them, they can get where it's very difficult to turn.
True. There is a thing called exercising the valves. And so let's draw a bigger picture. We'll kind of sneak over here. So your shut-off valve, your copper pipe comes up, and usually it has a square body, and then it comes out, and there will be a nut, and then there will be a handle. So if you tighten the handle down, sometimes what's called a packing nut, sometimes that packing nut will leak, and it'll start dripping. And you just put a crescent wrench on that and give it a little snug down. My thoughts is no. I wouldn't mess around with it unless you need it. But if it's something that you want to do, I mean, most people don't do maintenance. I make my living as a plumber, and I don't do maintenance on my valves. I don't clean my P-traps unless they're draining slow. It's kind of the way it goes. If it's working, it's out of sight, out of mind. You don't really think about it. But if you are under there and you do have the time and the inclination, you shut the valve off and just kind of, and I would shut it all the way off. You don't have to wrench it hard, but just kind of snug it off and then check your faucet to make sure that it worked. So you could if you wanted, I guess is the short answer. It certainly wouldn't hurt as long as it works. Sometimes if it's a really older home and those have been in there for 50, 60 years and they've never been shut off, shutting them off will be difficult. And that's usually when I go, you know what, if it doesn't turn easily, don't mess with it, because you might make a small task into a monster task, because now you have a valve that's leaking and dripping. Sometimes the packing nut doesn't tighten down and it's still dripping or spraying, and now you've taken something that was working and now you've kind of messed with it, if you will, and now it's not working. So
And is that something a homeowner could replace, or should they call the plumber?
it goes back to your comfort level. Everything is on YouTube right now. And if you watch it and you feel comfortable and you have the tools, sometimes that's the problem. If you just have a little tiny crescent wrench and this is galvanized, you're probably not going to be able to thread that off. A lot of times it's whatever you're comfortable with. And if it's copper now, you've got to have a copper cutter so that you can cut it off nicely, and then either use a shark bite shut off, or you have to use one that you solder on. And there isn't a lot of soldering being done anymore. I do very little. I don't use shark bites for a permanent solution, just because I have a tool that will actually do that for me. So in short, I mean, if you want to mess with them, you can. I kind of steer away from it. It's on the old adage, if it's not broken, don't fix it. And just like slow drains, no one messes with a slow drain or messes with a drain until it's slow. And then it's time to take care of it. So any other questions from the back?
Dorothy wrote in and said, what makes it harder to change out a part in 10 years in the future, putty or silicone? I think she's asking about when you seal up your drain.
Silicone will be more difficult because it's a better seal, I think. It's because it's almost liquidy. It kind of gets into every part around that drain, which is what you want. Again, I really like the silicone. It's no one looks ahead for taking those apart. That's certainly a good idea, but I like the silicone. It's just in the wintertime, I don't have to bring in the putty and warm it up in my hand or warm it up and get it pliable. The silicone, you just squeeze it in, put it together, tighten it down, wipe it off with a paper towel, and poof, you're done. Sometimes the putty, you have to come back and crank it down again because you either put it in too thick or it was cold and it'll still compress more, and then you'll have to clean it out. So I would steer you towards the silicone. I mean, everyone has a caulk gun, or if not, they're super inexpensive. Tubes of caulk are pretty cheap and can be used for many different things. Hopefully that answers your question. Anything else?
Your friend Sarah is apparently part of the Steve fan club, so she's writing in saying hello to you. So
Hi, Sarah.
we appreciate everyone who wrote in tonight.
Oh, perfect. I appreciate it, Sarah. Thank you. So I think are we pretty much there? If there aren't any more questions? There aren't any more questions? Okay. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. I appreciate it. And I know that you can probably text in or write in questions if you have them. These two can certainly get them to me, and I can share what little advice I have. But other than that, I hope to see you again on the next one.
Great.
Thank you, Steve, and please know that we will text your questions on to Steve because I don't know how to answer them. Again, we'd like to thank you for attending this evening. We hope you learned something. The silicone sounds very interesting to me. You usually have some around your house already, and the plumber's putty gets old and yucky, and it's not real nice to touch. If you do have questions, please do send them to us at the contact site that's going across the bottom, Community Homeworks info@communityhomeworks.org, or you can call and ask, listen to the messages, and you can leave a message for either Jason or I, and we will get it to Steve. Again, we thank you for attending this evening and remind you that we will have a class again next Tuesday, same time, same channels, and we hope you'll watch us then. Thanks for coming this evening. Bye.